Hey, and welcome back. I've already talked a lot about how the recruiting and staffing industry is booming in a way it has never done before. The internet and modern technology have really evolved the process in many ways. It's easier than ever before for recruiters to find clients and candidates and perform their job effectively via the internet and technology. But the rapid expansion of the industry has also come an increase in competition in what was already a very competitive sphere. With more people than ever before looking to get into recruiting and countless companies looking for candidates to fill really important, hard to fill roles, it can be hard to stand out and establish yourself as a recruiter. This is one of the reasons I make videos here on YouTube. I want to be able to help up and coming recruiters like you navigate their way through an increasingly complex industry. In two of the most recent videos, we discussed the differences between contingent and retained recruiting. If you haven't seen it, I suggest going back to check those out if you'd like to learn more. But to summarize, the amount of recruiters vying for a company has caused the emergence of really two distinct types of recruiting. You got contingent recruiting, which basically means that there are multiple recruiters sourcing candidates for the same role, and the recruiter whose candidate is hired is the only one who can get paid. Conversely, retained recruiting means a company pays for a recruiter's services upfront as they begin the search for candidates, and they're paid again when the role is filled. As the name suggests, a company might also continuously refer back to you as their hiring needs change. While there are pros and cons to both types of recruiting, many recruiters actually make it their goal to become a retained recruiter, as there is better security and higher pay. But today, we're going to talk about recruiter exclusivity, which can be thought of as a kind of a middle ground between these two types of recruiting. We'll cover some of the pros and cons of exclusivity and how to convince a company to become your exclusive client. Before we get started, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, click that bell. It really means a lot, helps us out a lot. Many beginning recruiters start out as contingent. Companies rely on contingency recruiting as it is less risky and ultimately cheaper for them. However, it's typically used for more general, less specialized roles as the results lean towards quantity over quality. Contingency recruiting can be difficult for the recruiter because companies will rely on multiple recruiters or agencies, meaning they're in competition with each other. However, newcomers will have a harder time getting retained clients as companies pay more for them and will be looking for recruiters with proven success. That's where exclusivity comes in. Recruitment exclusivity means that the recruiter does not have to worry about competition with other recruiters. They have the role exclusively, hence the name. However, it's also safer for the company as there's no upfront cost and therefore little initial risk for them. So typically, exclusivity agreements are still reliant on a candidate being placed in a role. But let's explore how this is beneficial for both parties involved. The benefits of exclusivity. While many companies think that the more recruiters they have working on a specific role, the higher chance that they'll get a great placement, it makes sense, but while it's certainly possible, this is usually not the case. When companies create competition between recruiters, the recruiters have to make sacrifices in order to remain expedient. In other words, a recruiter is less likely to utilize all of the resources they have if they have to work quickly or risk losing the role. Additionally, if a recruiter senses that a client isn't committed to their candidate, they will quickly turn their attention to more lucrative opportunities or better clients. When a recruiter doesn't have to compete with others, they are less concerned about speed and more about quality. They can take their time and really use their knowledge and expertise and resources to their full potential, resulting in a solid number of highly qualified candidates as opposed to an overwhelming amount of potentially unqualified ones. This can be an especially valuable opportunity for new recruiters to make connections and build trust. Not only can they focus on doing the best job possible, but they can also be more interactive with the client. Additionally, when a client has to communicate with a large number of recruiters, there is a chance that some might go unnoticed. When the client only has to focus on the performance and results of one recruiter, they're able to stand out that much stronger. Client companies also stand to save a lot of money when they rely on an exclusive recruiter. It's significantly cheaper than hiring a retained recruiter, and by minimizing the amount of communication they have to do between different recruiters or agencies, they can really focus on other things that need their more immediate attention as a recruiter goes and searches for candidates to fill the role. Convincing a client to go exclusive. So, despite the many clear advantages to both parties involved in an exclusive recruiting contract, it isn't always easy convincing a client to grant you role exclusivity. Organizations are still heavily invested in either contingent or retained recruiting. If you are a contingency recruiter hoping to move to exclusivity, you'll need to convince the organization that some of their assumptions about contingency are wrong. For instance, contingency doesn't always mean a better selection. While it can bring in a large quantity of candidates, they simply won't be as qualified sometimes as candidates sourced by a recruiter who can take their time and perform a detailed search. You also need to emphasize that competition doesn't always mean recruiters will work harder. recruiter. Many companies mistakenly believe that the more competition there is, the more motivated the recruiter will be to work. In fact, the opposite is usually the case. As soon as a recruiter sees you're interested in a candidate other than their own, they will likely lose any motivation to continue their search. Have the organization considered the oversaturation can be a real issue? While it can certainly be beneficial to have a large number of job advertisements across various platforms, it can quickly become too much. Candidates may be wary to work with you if they think you're desperate to fill roles. Finally, remind the organization that they are receiving the benefits of a retained recruiter at a fraction of the cost. There's a recurring theme here. The best way to convince a client to move to an exclusive contract with you is to remind them that quantity does not equal quality. By relying on a single recruiter as opposed to a multitude of different ones means higher quality results over the long term. But before we start to wrap up here, there are a few other small points that are worth mentioning. Consider that relying on a single recruiter greatly improves the candidate's experience as well. A recruiter can better personalize their outreach and provide a smoother interview process when they don't have to worry about competition. As a result, their view of the company will be improved and they'll hopefully be more interested in the role. Do you have any thoughts on your own to add about exclusivity? Please be sure to drop a comment or your experience below. Love hearing from you. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please consider liking, subscribing, clicking that bell. It really means a lot. Feel free to also follow me at Preston_Park as I try my best to also post daily. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one.